With Houston being ranked as the #1 city in the nation for human trafficking by the United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime, there are certain locations within our city that are notorious for this horrible crime. They're listed here, and what people will sometimes do is they'll set up massage parlors, cantinas, or brothels inside of townhomes as to disguise and camouflage their operations, to make them fit in, if you will. And these locations are where male-dominated industries are located, and because of this, it's a lot easier for these people to set up their various operations because zoning laws are a lot more relaxed. And next thing you know, you have these types of areas rooting up all over the place.
Connect the public health disciplines as far as they relate to human trafficking. For starters, health policy and management. Texas is trying to implement educational policies for healthcare providers to teach them how to recognize and treat victims. An example is the Texas Human Trafficking Resource Center that provides training resources for healthcare professionals. For social and behavioral sciences, lower income people might be more drawn to traffickers because of economic necessity. For biomedical sciences, sex trafficking victims are prone to sexually transmitted diseases like HIV or AIDS. In epidemiology, the cause for high trafficking in Houston is because of its large population and geographic location. It's close to the border where it's more accessible for traffickers to interconnect, and immigrants are likely to be taken advantage of. And lastly, as far as environmental health science, poverty-stricken people who are usually affected by poor housing, food, and water quality can be more at risk of falling victim to coercion.
There are many different ways someone's health can be affected from human trafficking. This can include short-term and long-term effects. Short-term effects can include STDs that can be cured with an antibiotic. Long-term effects can include mental health issues like depression or trauma. It can also include STDs that cannot be cured with an antibiotic.
There are 5 different types of organized crime and organizers in human trafficking, the first being mom and dad, which takes up 35% of all organized crime cases against human trafficking. A combined 71% of mom and pop groups engage only in sex trafficking, being either minor only, adult only, or both minor and adult. The average number of victims exploited by a mom and pop group is 17.6, and the average number of defendants per case is 5.3. The second highest is crime rings. The average number of victims exploited by a crime ring is 7, and the average number of defendants per case is 5.3. The next is gang, which makes up 6% of organized crime, followed by the cartel, mafia, and syndicate, which ranges from 0.2 to almost 1%. And the last is an illegal enterprise, which makes up 26% of organized crime cases. This could be either brothels, massage parlors, or even strip clubs. How are organized groups operating? The first is recruitment. This is the ability to recruit your victims through enticement, poverty, drugs, or abuse. The second would be operational security, is the group's ability to evade law enforcement and detection. The next is organizational structure, followed by advertising, where the most common form in Mexico would be to handing out cards. Next is pricing, structure, and payment. This is how much an act costs, the location, or the person it would be with. Next is managing money, which can be through laundering or other forms of businesses such as barbershops and tanning salons.
Human trafficking began under the moniker of white slavery in the early 1900s. This is believed to have occurred due to the increase in women migrants into the United States. The moniker was created by European men who believed European women sex workers would not willingly have sex with foreign men or men of different races. The moniker, white slavery's exclusive definition, which is the slavery of white women, was used as an erasure of the horrors of black slavery. due to it being considered a human atrocity to the European men. As time has progressed, however, over the decades, the term human trafficking now encompasses all ages, genders, and races, which brings us to the modern term that we know today.
Statistics for Houston and Texas. There's no denying that human trafficking is a growing problem in the U.S. Houston is one of the largest cities in the U.S. and is one of the worst places for human trafficking, mostly for forced labor and sexual exploitation. It is estimated that 50,000 people from various countries are trafficked into Texas every year. Houston is the number one city in the United States for human trafficking, and Texas as a state comes in at number 2 after California.
As mentioned before, Houston has some of the worst statistics in the U.S., being named one of the most intense trafficking jurisdictions in the country. Every 30 seconds, another person becomes a victim of human trafficking. In Texas alone, there were 1,080 cases reported in 2019. It's hard to keep track of these statistics as there is no protocol for compiling reports of these cases, so it could be that there are even more cases that are not being accounted for.
Are you in danger or in a potential situation to be trafficked? Well, you would be surprised to find that human traffickers are not just strangers, but they can actually be significant others. So it's important to know what grooming is. Grooming is how a human trafficker controls a victim. This occurs through building a relationship of trust based on emotional connection to exploit the victim. And so knowing what grooming is would help you identify if you were in a dangerous situation of being trafficked.
The Texas Human Trafficking Prevention Coordinating Council has created a plan they call Phase 1 that charts 7 prevention strategies to end human trafficking in Texas. Strategy 1 assesses the prevention landscape. This will address the forms of human trafficking, which are violence, child abuse, sexual assault, and partner violence, which will provide an extensive image of prevention services and education, as well as encourage learning about these topics. Strategy 2 develop statewide prevention framework and guidelines, will give supported guidelines on how to handle situations that involve human trafficking, which can increase the effectiveness of services and programs targeted to assist those who have been a victim and prevent any more victims of human trafficking. Strategy 3, enhance community awareness. There are still people in this world who are not aware of human trafficking, and other people have misinformation or a mistaken idea on what it actually is. If proper conditions are not met to educate people on human trafficking, it makes it more difficult for a community to have adequate trafficking preventions. Communities with an accurate understanding of human trafficking in all its forms are better equipped to prevent it. Strategy 4, identity and address risk and protection factors. The likelihood of an individual becoming a victim to a human trafficking depends on the individual, community, relationship, and societal level. Risk factors come from the high possibilities of negative outcomes happening to an individual, but protective factors will reduce the likelihood of risk factors. Strategy 5, reduce vulnerabilities. These vulnerabilities are economic empowerment, targeted prevention education, and healthy supportive relationships. Economic empowerment are individuals who go through or are going through an economic insecurity who are more vulnerable to participating in human trafficking. More job opportunities or better economic opportunities for communities that are considered a higher risk of human trafficking can decrease the financial circumstances that account for an individual becoming involved in trafficking. Targeted prevented education deals with individuals who are considered high risk for trafficking and will benefit greatly from prevention education. Targeted prevention education can help people understand what recruitment, grooming, and manipulation tactics that traffickers use, but also learn how to react to these in a safe way. Healthy, supportive relationships. Having a healthy and supportive relationship is a key factor in keeping a person safe from exploitation and abusive circumstances. A relationship like this can help prevent potential instances and exploitation. Strategy 6. Utilize school-based prevention education.
Schools in Texas are required by law to provide age-appropriate, research-based education that targets to prevent child sexual abuse and trafficking. Schools are also required to have policies that address human trafficking and train staff and raise awareness amongst parents and students. Educating individuals of all ages, especially the youth, and not just those who are considered high risk for human trafficking, is important. Currently, the Texas Education Agency is trying to help communities implement the previous requirements, but also existing prevention education programs, which will include age-appropriate messages regarding sexual exploitation of children. Strategy 3, reduce demand. Human trafficking is fueled by demand. If there was no demand, human trafficking would not exist. To reduce the demand of human trafficking, it is necessary that state and local task forces and coalitions discuss which factors allow the demand to increase. The best self-defense weapons that an individual can have, especially women, to protect themselves are pepper spray, stun gun, tactical pen, emergency whistle, keychain alarm, and self-defense flashlight. Most importantly, look into taking self-defense lessons at a gym.
Considering that the university is located in the #1 city for human trafficking, there are many different ways that it is affected. There are also many ways that the university can help. This can include posting flyers that have warning signs on how to prevent being a victim and how to spot if someone is in danger due to human trafficking. They can also educate all students on the topic, and they can also invite anti-human trafficking experts to the university to help educate the students and do panels. I emailed someone who's part of the United Against Human Trafficking, and when she responded to me, she told me that students can be trained with Human Trafficking 101, and she even offered to help me set these up so that the university can have these on campus.
There are many different organizations that have been created to help put an end to human trafficking. One of those organizations is called Thorn, Digital Defenders of Children. It was founded by Demi Moore and Ashton Kutcher in 2009, and through Thorn, they work on developing technological barriers and initiatives to ensure the safety of children online and to help eliminate sexual predators on the internet. UNICEF is an organization that is known for lots of different humanitarian issues, one being child trafficking. UNICEF lobbies for stronger child protection laws along with supporting professionals that help the victims. Stop the Traffic helps fight trafficking through education. They inform people on how to recognize signs of human trafficking and how to respond to them. They have created an app called the Stop app to help people report trafficking.